Hello guys and welcome to my new video. Today I'm going to show you my last game that I played during my road to the 2400 rating. If you follow my blog that you know this is my biggest dream and goal, and on that way if I play uh, some nice game, I'm going to share it with you if there is something to learn about them. And this weekend I was playing in the French National Championship. I was playing with the white pieces against 2200 candidate master. Was a very solid player. Actually, the game became a draw, but I think it was a very nice game. The accuracy of both sides has had around 95%, so it was a kind of quality game, and I think I can show you a few things through that game. So let's get started. I was playing with the white pieces, d4, g6, and since I played the Jobava London system and not the Queen's Gambit and stuff like that, in this case I had to transpose into a modern defense. The thing is that I also played the modern defense with black since my shield hold, but it's very interesting because of course it's not the favorite defense of the computers, of the engines, but I think it's not easy to play against, and to be honest, I hate to play against the modern defense, so I have to figure out some more solid system. Bishop g7, knight c3, d6, bishop e3, a6, and here I already made a very interesting thing because without thinking I played the queen d2, and after that I realized that in blitz games and bullet I started to play this g4 move instead. I got this idea from Caruana, and I really like that. The static of this g4 move is amazing for white, and not just because the static, but if black plays normally, so if he's not prepared against this g4, it can be extremely dangerous, and white can win quite easily. But without thinking, I played the queen d2 because that was my old move. So what I can suggest you here, that even in the opening you should try to slow down a bit, because maybe you realize that you try to do something that you shouldn't. b5. Of course, there is nothing wrong with that, but if I could go back to the time, I would choose the g4 instead. And my opponent played c6 here, and I was a bit surprised because my idea that I'm not sure that the c6 and a6 are fits together. So for the first sight, I didn't really understand the idea behind that. By the way, my opponent wasn't thinking too much, so probably he was prepared, and I also could find some games in the database for c6. But of course, knight d7 followed by bishop b7 and c5 is just more common and more typical. c6, and here I was thinking a lot. I had many candidates, and now in this series I would like to give you an insight how I, as a FIDE master, think in kind of situations. So firstly, I had to choose some candidates, and after that I started to calculate with them. Actually, if I count well, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I had 7 candidates here, and let's go through them step by step. A3 seems logical to prevent the b4, but normally the b4 is not the biggest thing that black has. So as much as I can remember, the a3 is more or less just wasting time. So I didn't want to move that. I was thinking about long side castle. It had to be a candidate for sure, But I was like thinking, I can castle whenever I want. So I didn't want to rush with that. I can castle in one or two moves later too. So I didn't want to commit myself. E4 is also like that. That probably it's a good move, but too committal, and after that I cannot castle to the long side, and I wasn't really sure about how would I continue my setup. Bishop d3 is seems normal, but after that knight d7 could come, and knight ge2 would face with c5, and it's very very uncomfortable because now he will have this c4 push. It's a threat, and now I do not have time to play the c3 to make room for my bishop. So if I go back until here, knight ce2 would make more sense, c5 and c3. And I used to play something like that when I was a kid, but this weekend I don't know, I didn't feel that yeah, somehow it's good enough for me. I didn't want to move two times with this knight from b1 while at the same time the g1 is still there. So I wanted to find something better, but it wasn't that bad. G4 was one of my biggest candidate, but the thing is that the g4 could be dangerous for white also, because the question is that after h5 can black prevent the future h4 h5 breakthrough for white? Because if the answer is yes, then maybe it's just weakening my position. So for example, exchange knight ge2, and after knight f6, knight g3, rook h8, castle, and after that I can push the h4 because this knight can also have from e2 and f4, and after push the pawn to h4, h5, and it seems okay, but he has a move that he could insert here, and that's the b4, and now I have to go back to d1, and now he plays knight f6, and it's going to be the same, but now he can block the h5 breakthrough, and my other knight cannot come to the action through e2 and f4 because it's stuck on d1, and now he prevented the h5, and if I'm not able to play h5, then I'm not sure what can I do. So according to the engine, here white could take the pawn, so this is the reason why the b4 for black wasn't the best, but I will be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of these kind of complications with white in the opening, and I just wanted to play something more normal, more solid. So I wasn't really happy with this g4, and the other candidate was knight ge2, and it's also something like that. It's a mix between h4, g4, bishop d3, castle. So it's a mix between the other options. Probably that would be the best continuation. Knight d7, g4, knight b6, and I have the time to play knight g3 now, and now the knight c4 is prevented because I can simply exchange, and after h4, h5, g5, knight d7, and this is a very complex position. Probably white has some advantage because of the space. I would be happy with this position, but I have no idea why I didn't go with that. At the end of the day, I decided to start the attack, to launch the attack with h4, but I think it's still okay. But knight g2 would be better, h5 of course, and I was thinking that knight h3 would be okay, and after knight g5 I will be fine. But unfortunately he took this knight, which is a very very strong move, this exchange. And to be honest, I was thinking until here, and I said okay, and I saw that he is going to exchange, but I said okay, I will have a bishop pair at least. And the position didn't change too much, but I have the bishop pair. But in the other hand, what I realized that the rook on h3 is very, very misplaced there. It's extremely misplaced there because the king side is closed. I cannot push the attack there, and in this case, the rook on h3 is just useless. Knight d7, and if I want to keep and maintain the advantage, the g4 would be my only chance. And you know, because I told that previously, the g4 would give any space for the rook in the future from g3 or something. So now at least the h3 is not that useless. We give him some things to do now after g4, but I was calculated with take knight f6, g5, and now he also has this inserting move with b4, and I didn't like that. Of course, if he moves the knight, I would be fine, but after b4, of course, I have to take the f6, otherwise the e4 is hanging, and he takes the c3. Now my queen is hanging, I have to take back. He takes queen c6 because it was hanging, rook c8, I have to go back to a4 because the c2 is hanging, and rook h5, and according to the engine, white is clearly better, but I don't know. It was very, very hard to evaluate this position. Everything is hanging. My queen is a bit misplaced there. I have to take care of her. The h4 is also weak. My king is in the middle, and it's not even better to castle to the long side because he can drop his rook to the other side of the board whenever he wants. So I wasn't really sure about that. And you know, it doesn't matter what does the computer say if you do not feel comfortable in your position. So I started to try to follow the principles that I also teach. So I have the bishop pair. What the bishop pair needs, they need open position, open diagonals. So I played for a4 and try to open up the position as much as I can. I was more afraid about keeping the position with knight f6. I think that would be better option for him than, I don't know, maybe castle, maybe just continue the development with queen c7 or stuff like that. b4 is not bad, but I was happy with that. Knight d1, so now the b4 is hanging, and he played c5. And once again, the computer said that if I exchange on c5, then a5, I would be better, but I'm not a big fan of this position. I cannot really believe this. I mean, if I have to play this position, the g7 bishop, the dragon bishop is a beast here, and I don't really understand why I'm supposed to be better in this position. So I try to continue my own plan, and this is very typical plan. I try to keep the big diagonal closed for the dragon bishop. He exchanged, knight f6, bishop d3, and queen a5. And here, to be honest, I started to worry a bit because what was in my mind that whenever he wants, he can exchange on d4 with the pawn. I have to take it back with the pawn, and he's going to exchange the queens. And after that, you know, there will be two open lines on the board, the b line and the c1. And after castling, he can occupy both. And remember what I told you, that I felt the rook on h3 is somehow misplaced there, and now I think you can also feel, because after cd queen exchange, he can occupy the b and c files quite easily, and I cannot challenge them because my rook is just hanging on h3. So I wasn't a big fan of my situation. And you know, it's just the worst scenario for black. I mean, it's not necessary to exchange on d4, but he does it whenever he wants. He can castle first, he can play rook b8 first, he can play rook c8 with the other rook first, then exchange. And I cannot prevent that. I cannot push my pawn because I released the dragon bishop. So I didn't feel very comfortable. But you know, it's not like you make a mistake and you have to give up the game. And of course, objectively, white is not worse, of course, but it's very important that I always teach to my students that if you make a mistake and you realize that you made a mistake, like what happened with me, I realized that this knight h3 plan wasn't the best. Most of them, they fall in themselves. Most of the players fall in themselves, and after that they make another mistake and make another mistake, or just a blunder, and the game finishes. So when you realize that you made a mistake, that just try to calm down, just try to clear your mind, and try to imagine that you never saw this position before, and this is the first time that you see this position, and you have to find a solution, and you have to keep fighting, you know. So I was like that, and I try to do my best. So yes, something like that. Chess is not about, you know, that you have to feel bad that I just played rook h3 a few moves ago and now I have to go back to rook h1, and it seems totally nonetheless and useless. And but the thing is that in this kind of positions, when you are in trouble, as I said, you have to imagine that you never saw this position before. You don't know what happened before, and you just have to focus on the now and don't feel bad that you made a mistake before, you made a misoccurring move before. Just focus on now, and right now the rook h1 was the best continuation. Doesn't matter that what I did 5 moves before. Rook b8, rook a2. Finally, I found a very strong move, and I was very happy with that. It's a prophylactical move. I give some extra protection to my queen if he wants to exchange on d4, and on the other hand, I can also challenge his rook from b2. I can prepare knight b2 to develop with this knight finally, and also strengthen the second rank. I just keep the penetration points protected castle. And now it was typical of my playing style. I wasn't surprised that I found this move and I made it happen. It's in my games. It's very often that I don't castle nowhere and then play moves like that. King e2, like the whole center is opened, and playing e2 seems weird somehow. King f2 would be more logical for the first sight, of course, but you know, I didn't want to place my king to a black square because he has a black bishop. So maybe in the future, if he managed to exchange on d4, I could overlook some tactic, counter strike, or maybe knight g4, knight e4 one time could be a check. So you know, I wanted to be sure. Now the knight never going to jump to give a check, and also it's on a white square, so he has a black bishop, he cannot challenge my king, so I think it was more safety. Rook b3 is a very interesting move, and to be honest, very strong. I think my opponent had to find this, otherwise he would be in a trouble soon, because now I started to fix myself, and if I manage to play knight b2, knight c4 somehow, followed by rook c1, I would be okay. But now the knight b2 is prevented because the c3 is hanging, and also he prepares rook b8. And after rook b8, it's going to be extremely hard to finish my development. So basically, bishop c2 is a must. And now rook b7. And the difference, why didn't he do that right away? Because in this case, that bishop would be here, and I'm not 100% sure that if I remember correctly, but I think I can also prepare some bishop c4 in the future to protect the penetration points, but also knight b2 seems logical, even if this bishop would be here. So anyway, I play knight b2, and my opponent has a great chance to grab the the advantage here. This is the first moment of the game where he could get advantage, according to the engine, of course, because I didn't feel that I have the advantage. Rook b8, it's extremely strong. Knight c4, queen c7, d5. I'm pretty sure that we both calculated until here. Knight b6 and knight a5, and I was super happy with my position. The knight goes to c6, and I'm just much better, and I'm pretty sure that my opponent saw this line too, so that's why he decided to do something else. But now he has a very nice sacrifice, an exchange sacrifice with knight d5. Knight b7 is a must. Knight e3 first, queen e3, rook b7, rook b1, bishop b1, and knight d7. And now he made a quality sacrifice, but now he has a pawn and the knight for the rook. And in the other hand, I have a worse pawn structure because the c3 is very weak, and actually he has no weaknesses. And there is only one open file where my rook could work, and it's the b file. But I cannot see any penetration point to get inside the black scab. And in the other hand, if I leave the a2 square, then my a4 pawn could be a weakness too. I think if I would see this line with black, I would go for it in a blitz or rapid game, but I'm not sure that it's something that you do in a classical game. I don't think it's risky. It's just most people don't like to sacrifice material if it's not necessary, and I think it's wise. Queen c7, he went back, and now prevented the knight c4 because in this case he could take the d4. Rook c1. I was also thinking about bishop d3 immediately to attack the a6 pawn. But if you are not sure which plan to follow or which move you should choose, then try to use the worst piece principle. So if you still have pieces which aren't playing yet, then get them into the play. And most of the time you cannot really do better than that. Just do not leave your pieces hanging on a bad position. Rook c8, bishop d3. And now he played knight b8. I'm not pretty sure what I was calculating in the game, but after knight b8 I was really happy. So if the opponent has to play moves like that, I think you can be happy. Now I'm not sure that my continuation was the strongest. I played king f2 finally because now I wanted to prevent some d5 tactics. So until my king is on e2, I was afraid that one time, in a good time, he will play d5. And if I cannot push e5 somehow, then this queen is going to jump into the g3 square, and I didn't like it. So now I try to prevent that. But at the same time, I felt that somehow my pieces are a bit overloaded if my king is not there. So I think it was a bit shaky. Knight d7, it's very normal. Knight c4, cd, cd. By the way, he could play knight c6. I think it would be better to still keep the position more complex. But after exchange, I was very happy with my position. But my opponent played the strongest continuation. I'm not sure if it's a hard move. I don't think it's a hard move. It's not hard because if you do not play that, then your position is lost. So after I manage to play, I don't know, rook c2, I will have the bishop pair. My king is finally in safety. He has a weak pawn on a6. I have the center, I have the space, I have everything. So I don't say it's a huge advantage, but comfortable for sure, and black has no chance to come back to the game in a normal way. So I think that d5 is extremely strong move because it provided the opportunity to him to keep the position complex, and for the first size it seems risky, but you know it's not risky. The risky when you have a defending position and you try to hold it, because most of the time it's not going to work. d5 is really nice, and also it gives him good practical chances because I made a mistake here. Ed queen h2 still favors for white. I didn't want to get this kind of complications. The h4 is hanging for a check. I have a d isolated pawn. I was not a big fan of this. I saw a very nice move here, rook c2. I saw that. Of course, it's untouchable because I take it with the rook, and the rook on c8 will fall down. So he has to play queen h2, and I take the pawn. He gives a check. I play king g1, and he plays bishop d4. And I saw this line in my hand until here, but I didn't see the continuation. The d4 is untouchable. He could play knight f6 here or something like that. After that, white is clearly better. But I was afraid of bishop d4, but it's not working. And it's just a fantastic line I'm going to show you. I was laughing so hard when I saw that. Bishop g7. Okay, it's not hard. Probably I could find it if I get until here. Now bishop e3 is a must. Knight e3. Now the c8 is hanging, so he has to take the c2. And now c bets on. Bishop h7 check is winning. And why is it winning? Because it's untouchable. He cannot take the bishop there. He could take it on g6 with the pawn, but on h6 he cannot take it, because if he takes, queen c2 check, and now look at this position. The king can goes to g7 or h7, but for that he gets a knight f5 fork, right? So he has to go back to the back rank, but after that I check down the rook on b7, and I have a exchange up without any compensation. And yeah, it's like maybe super grandmasters could suit this variation, that in the end you have a bishop h7 check and it wins the game. But I will be honest with you, I had no chance to see this line. So that's why I played knight d6 in this position instead, and it seems very complex, very complicated, but according to the engine it's 0-0-0, and there is only one line which leads to a draw, and actually that happened in the game. Queen c1, queen c1, rook c1, knight b7. I was hoping that he is going to play rook c7, and after rook b2, I don't say that white has any advantage here, but probably the position is more comfortable due to the bishop pair, the a6 weakness, and the space. I mean, at least I could play that, but unfortunately he played rook c3, bishop e3, e2, sorry. Knight c6, very strong move, and you know the d4 is hanging, and I also have to watch out for this bishop b3, because soon he will catch my knight. e5, rook b3, rook c2, it's a must, otherwise I'm losing. Of course I cannot come out on c5 because he takes, and now even the e5 is hanging, even the d4 is strong. So rook c2 is an only move. He took the pawn, I took the knight, he took the knight, I took the pawn. So it's like take everything has been taken, but everything is a force move. So we are playing literally only moves in this position. Now the bishop is hanging, the a4 is hanging, so bishop c3 is only move. Bishop b5 is only move. Now his knight is hanging and rook is hanging, he has to go back. Now bishop d4 once again, only space is rook b7. Now a check, and of course he cannot leave with the king, because after that I managed to win, because I will take the material advantage. but unfortunately, of course, he had knight f8, bishop c6, and now the pawn is hanging, the rook is hanging, but he still had rook b4, bishop c5, rook b2, and unfortunately I couldn't avoid the perpetual check, king f1, rook b1, king e2, rook b2, and it went to a draw. I couldn't try king d3 because here he has many options. I mean, e6 is an only option. After that, if I play, for example, bishop e8, then in the worst case he can take the e5, and he has a pawn up with the same color bishop. Only black can win this, of course. And if I play bishop d6 to protect the e5, then in this case rook g2, bishop e8, and g5, and I cannot make any advantage after rook c8. I cannot take the f7 pawn in time because he's too fast on the king side, and it's very, very complicated. According to the engine, I can still hold this position, but now it's very, very shaky. And also you could ask that could he continue this game with e6, for example, to protect the d5. In this case, I would play bishop d6 to protect the e5 pawn. Rook c2 is basically only move, otherwise I will play bishop e8 followed by rook c8, rook c7, sorry, and attack against the f7 pawn. So he should pin my rook, and after that f4, and just keep my position. His king cannot move because the f8 is hanging, his bishop cannot move because the f8 is hanging, his rook cannot move because I will make my plan with bishop e8. So basically it's a stalemate on a full board. So I wasn't really happy with the result, of course, but my childhood coach always told me that you have to play what's in the game. So it's not wise to take to gambling and continue playing just because the opponent has lower rating than you. So you have to play what is in the game, and if you feel that you did everything and you give your best, you can be satisfied with yourself, because if you continue keep this quality, then the next time it's going to be happen, which will be the Danish Championship this weekend. Hopefully I will play some nice games out of the two, what I can show you in the future. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this analyzing useful. See ya.